Amy Marie Yeary. On November 23, 2008, hunters came across the remains of a young woman frozen in a shallow creek in the rural area of Fond du Lac County, Wisconsin. The remains were found on private property near an abandoned farm. Partially submerged in the shallow creek on Skyline Drive in Ashford, Wisconsin investigators were forced to extract the body by chiseling away the ice, and once removed, scuba divers were brought in to search the bottom for evidence. They found some articles of clothing, including a strapless Zoe Beth brand, black and pink top with a pink bow, determined to have come from Family Dollar, where it had been available in the spring of 2008. The underclothing that she wore, also from Family Dollar, was shipped only between July 1st and July 15th, 2008. The victim's socks or shoes were not found at the scene in the water. Investigators found a medal of St. Benedict, but it was not known if it was related to her. Her cause of death was inconclusive, but the manner of death was believed to be a homicide. Although the body was found in late autumn, she had actually died in the summer. 2 to 4 months earlier, this was established by examining traces from insects that were found on the remains. She had an overbite, and some fillings and dental sealants were found on the upper molars. She was believed to be a Caucasian between 15 and 21 years old, but examiners could not be sure other physical characteristics included a healed rib fracture and being pigeon-toed or knock-kneed, which may have been noticeable when she walked as her feet were slanted inward to obtain DNA information. Her femur was transported to the University of Texas. Her DNA was entered into the National DNA Database, and dental records were created that could be compared to those of reported missing persons. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children would have a computer-generated reconstruction created of the victim by using mortuary photographs and a CT scan of the school that were submitted to the center. The reconstruction of the victim generated over 200 tips, but did not produce any solid leads, as the composite apparently resembled a large number of missing people. For 3 years, she remained at the medical examiner's office, waiting for investigators to give her a name. In December 2011, her body was laid to rest at Cattaraugus Cemetery in a public ceremony, and then the case would officially go cold in April 2018. A revised reconstruction was released, and authorities announced that the victim would be exhumed for isotope testing and DNA phenotyping to determine geographical locations where she may have lived, and to develop a clear estimation of her ethnicity and physical characteristics. Genetic genealogy would also be used to locate individuals biologically related to her bone tooth, and hair samples were sent to numerous labs throughout the country that specialize in various forms of forensic analysis. Months later, the results indicated that the Jane Doe had likely spent most of her life in the southwestern United States. Possibly in Arizona or New Mexico, she had lived in the Midwest, perhaps in southwestern Wisconsin, northern Iowa, or southern Minnesota, for less than a year preceding her death. After genealogy, research helped identify family members. Her DNA was compared to her mother and sister. Her identity was finally announced on November 23, 2021, 13 years to the day that she was found. Amy Marie Yeary was born December 9, 1989, and was originally from Rockford, Illinois. She came from a broken home, and she and her siblings were split up, and Amy went to live with her grandmother in Illinois. About 2015, her siblings were searching for her and started a Facebook page dedicated to finding Amy. She would have been 18 years old when she died in 2008. It was also learned that she spent time in Milwaukee, Chicago, and Beloit, Wisconsin, in the weeks preceding her death while speaking with her mother. Detectives learned that Amy had made a phone call to her mother from Beloit in 2008, saying she wanted a ride home. Her mother, who lived in northern Illinois, at the time could not give her a ride due to car trouble. She became angry at her mother and said she was in trouble, and then she was never heard from. Again, a missing persons report was never filed, but the family had hoped to make contact with Amy on their own. She was oftentimes transient, and it is believed that she was a victim of human trafficking. Although Amy now has her name back, The sheriff's office says, "There's still work that needs to be done to determine how and why Amy lost her life," and asked anyone that knows anything about the case to come forward. Kim Bryant, at the age of 16, Kim Bryant attended Western High School in Las Vegas, Nevada on January 26, 1979. She went to the school to register for sophomore classes and then to the Dairy Queen across the street with a friend. While standing outside the restaurant, Kim and her friend were verbally accosted by two young men driving a 1955 to 57 Chevy with silver primer paint and light spots. Words were exchanged, and the men in the Chevy sped off down Decatur Boulevard. The men in the Chevy had also tried to entice other girls from Western High School. Into their car earlier in the week, police were able to create a sketch of the passenger, who was described as about 18 years old, with scraggly blonde hair, and the driver was in his early 20s, with medium brown hair and possibly had a mustache at 10 a.m. She would call her boyfriend to come pick her up from the Dairy Queen by 10:10 a.m. Kim's friend had been picked up by her parents when her boyfriend arrived around 10:45 a.m. Kim was nowhere to be found. Strangely, he would wait 4 days before reporting this to authorities. At about noon on the day she disappeared, a passing motorist spotted a backpack in the center median on North Decatur Boulevard, which ran between the school and the Dairy Queen. Inside the bag was Kim's ID and belongings. Kim's mother, Sherry Elliott, and stepfather, Edward Elliott, attempted to file a missing persons report when she didn't return home from school that day, but police who suspected she had run away from home did not declare her missing until January 31st. This was only after learning her book bag had been found discarded in the median of a nearby roadway on February 20th, 1979. A month later, her body was found by three young boys in a desert area near West Charleston Boulevard and South Buffalo Drive. She had been sexually assaulted and killed, and DNA evidence from a suspect was recovered, but police were unable to make an identification, and the case would go cold. There have been a few theories over the years as to who could have been responsible for her death. Stephen Marin, who was a Vegas serial killer during the time of her murder, was identified as the man that took him on a date to a skating rink about 2 weeks before she disappeared. Also, a macrame belt similar to the one Kim was wearing. The day she disappeared was found in a storage unit owned by Morin, and Morin was believed to be responsible for the rape and attempted murder of a 15-year-old Vegas girl in April of 1980. And that girl had been left at the same site where Kim's body was found. However, the head of the Metro Homicide Unit noted that other young women were found murdered in the desert under similar circumstances as Kim after Martin's arrest. Another possible suspect was Bobby Jean Thomas, who was a local Vegas roofer that had been convicted for attempting to assault a woman in 1970. He was convicted of statutory rape and avoided a manslaughter charge as part of a plea deal. In relation to the death of his 14-year-old sister-in-law, Thomas was killed the day after Kim went missing. Ronnie Lee Fain, a career criminal from California that recently moved to Vegas, was arrested for his murder. Fain told police he murdered Thomas in a fit of rage. After he confessed to the murder of Kim Bain, passed 2 polygraph exams, and his guilty plea was accepted. But Fain later tried to withdraw his confession. And some detectives were suspicious of the fact Fain didn't even know Kim's name until he was told it by his defense attorney, and Fain had stabbed another Vegas man to death only a month before the Thomas killing. Most concerning the detective heading, the Thomas investigation said eyewitnesses reported Kim was last seen alive in a vehicle with 4 men, meaning that even with Thomas's death, 3 suspects remained on the loose. Then, in 2008, an attempt was made to create a DNA profile from the suspect's semen, following advances in technology. In 2021, DNA from different items of evidence were sent to other Incorporated for testing using a financial donation from Las Vegas resident and philanthropist Justin Wu. A male DNA profile was obtained and entered into CODIS, but there were no hits. That's when genetic genealogists built a family tree of the unknown killer, which ultimately led them to Johnny Blake Peterson Otherham, and police eventually narrowed the search to a relative of Peterson, who was willing to give a DNA sample. It was then concluded in November 2021, 42 years after the murder, that Peterson was the person that kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered Kim. Peterson was a 19-year-old Las Vegas resident at the time of Kim's death. He had previously attended the same school as Kim and would have been 3 years her senior. Although it is unclear if they had interacted, he had a 1980 arrest for rape in Las Vegas, but the charges were later dismissed. He was never even on the radar as a suspect for her murder and had died in January 1993. Sadly, Kim's mother, Sherry Elliott, passed away in June of 2020 at the age of 79 before her daughter's killer was named. Music Haley Mae Coblentz on December 10th, 2020. Someone walking near a rest stop in Lincoln County, Oregon, came upon human remains just outside the rest area when police arrived. They determined that it was a female child concealed inside a duffel bag, then hidden in the forest.